Every second, global systems generate a massive, quantifiable volume of digital information. To build architecture capable of holding it, engineers first classify the specific type of data they are handling. Traditionally, information is organized as structured data. This relies on predefined relational data models, like Excel spreadsheets or SQL databases, where every piece of information fits into specific rows and columns. However, nearly 90% of the world's available data is unstructured. This includes media files, audio waveforms, video frames, and raw text that lack a predefined format. This diagram shows the sorting mechanism for these two paradigms. On the left, raw text and audio files flow into an unstructured bin. On the right, geometric rows and columns sort into a structured relational database. Machine learning and bioinformatics rely on datasets that are too large or complex for these relational tables, requiring a different approach to data storage. Between these two categories is semi-structured data. Here, information is organized using internal tags and hierarchies, creating a framework without the rigidity of a relational table. Modern genomic sequencing naturally outputs its results in this semi-structured format. Translating a physical human genome into digital reads creates a high-volume data stream, outputting billions of base pairs that must be accurately logged and retrieved. Storing and querying this semi-structured biological data requires specialized compression formats. At scale, processing these formats forces engineers to make specific mathematical trade-offs in their distributed database architecture. The structure of the data directly dictates the engineering architecture required to house it. To handle raw genome sequencing data, biologists rely on a standard known as the BAM format. It is the lossless, compressed binary representation of a sequence alignment map, or SAM file, designed to store nucleotide sequence alignments. The BAM schema divides into a header and an alignment section containing metadata tags like read group and barcode. A BGZF filter compresses this into a dense binary block. BAM uses a zero-based coordinate system, allowing fast retrieval without scanning the entire file. Compressing a single file solves the local storage problem, but hosting millions of these files requires a shift from local disks to distributed cloud systems. Localized single machine storage has physical limits on disk space and processing power. Handling genomic data at scale requires migrating these BAM files to NoSQL distributed data stores, spreading the workload across thousands of server nodes. This diagram shows BAM files mapped across a constellation of servers. But connecting these nodes introduces a physical vulnerability, the network partition, where messages between server nodes are dropped or delayed. Distributed database design assumes that hardware will fail and connections will drop, making network partitions a physical certainty. Because these partitions are unavoidable, database architects design systems assuming the network will eventually break. This operational reality is governed by the CAP theorem, introduced by computer scientist Eric Brewer in the late 1990s as a framework for distributed systems. The first pillar is consistency. This dictates that every read receives the most recent write or an error, ensuring all clients see the same data. The second pillar is availability. This requires that every request received by a non-failing node must result in a response, even if the data is older. The third pillar is partition tolerance, meaning the system continues to operate despite the dropped messages in a network partition. This Euler diagram illustrates that a data store guarantees at most two of these three. Partition tolerance is mandatory, forcing a choice during a failure. Option CP cancels operations for consistency, while AP proceeds, prioritizing availability over absolute accuracy. NoSQL databases are designed for these choices. MongoDB and Redis maintain consistency, while Cassandra and CouchDB prioritize availability. Choosing a database for genomic research is a mathematical commitment to either data accuracy or system uptime during a network crisis. This raises a follow-up question. How does the database behave when the network is running correctly, without a partition? In 2010, the Pay-Selk theorem was introduced as an expansion to complete the CAP mental model. This decision tree maps the logic. On the left, if there is a partition, the trade-off is between availability and consistency. On the right is the else condition. Without a partition, the system trades off between latency and consistency. When transferring large BAM files on a healthy network, Enforcing perfect consistency means waiting for all nodes to sync. That waiting period creates high latency. The Paysilk theorem shows that every database transaction requires a choice, forcing architects to balance speed against accuracy even when the network is healthy. The rules of distributed systems tie directly back to the micro-level formatting of the binary files they store. The semi-structured nature of biological data dictates this entire chain of database selection and theorem management. Efficient bioinformatics requires aligning the zero-based indexing speed of a BAM pile with the specific Paysilk configuration of the cloud database. Designing modern data-intensive systems requires mastering the full stack, from the localized coordinate system of a single binary file to the fault tolerance physics of a globally distributed network.